Hey baby, what are you doing? Is this better? I'm just gonna, whoa, hi. I think the coloring is just gonna be bad on this because I can't do this better. No, it's still bad, okay. Hey guys, it's Lucy. I am so scared right now because my computer is balancing on my TBR pile and I think that's a really bad idea. Hopefully it'll stay up. I've been trying to make a TBR and wrap up for like 2 months and I've actually made it twice. So I basically made a wrap up for July and August and then now it's October, so I just decided to do an overall summer wrap up and then I'll do an October TBR. I was considering doing like a full-on fall TBR, but I don't know what I'm doing. So we're gonna try to keep it simple. Starting with the wrap up, I thought that I read in June. Apparently I did not read a single book in June. You know, off to the great start with summer. But I do think that I was probably in the middle of a couple books that I just didn't finish in June because there were 2 books this year that took me like, I don't even know, maybe like 6 months to read. I don't know why. So the very first book I read in summer, and keep in mind, I did technically start reading Beach Read from May to kind of June. I just never finished it. I like it. I will finish the book eventually, but that would have been such a nice first summer book. But instead, I read I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream by Harlan Ellison. Sorry, the name's backwards on here. This book inspired mouthwashing and a little bit of The Amazing Digital Circus as well. Basically what it's about, I think this like AI computer has killed all of the world, like all of humanity is dead because of this computer, except for like 4 or 5 people. I thought that this took place on a spaceship. I got really confused because of mouthwashing, and then I realized towards the end, I'm like, I think they're underground in a bunker. But basically he's keeping these 5 people alive, keeps them on like the brink of death, but he doesn't kill them. And he hates humanity so much that he's just chosen these few people to just torment for all of eternity. And it's about like this one guy's perspective while he's going through it. And like seeing his friends and everything being tortured and stuff. I was not the biggest fan of this. Personally, I don't read gore a lot. And it was like not just gore, like I don't hate gore. It really depends on like the context of it or like how it's done and stuff. Like I don't read about it a lot. In movies it depends, but this was just like grotesque for the sake of being grotesque. Not to say there wasn't a point to it. Like obviously the point was that the way they were being tortured was like really graphic and horrible. I just didn't like to read about it. I read it in like a day because it was like 20 pages. I think I gave it 3 stars. I think it's more like 2.5 on Fable, though you just can't do that on Goodreads. Not the biggest fan. Maybe I can kind of understand why people like it, but also like no. I don't know. It's not. I don't think it's for me. Like I don't mind horror whatsoever, just not that kind of horror. Your breath smells. You look creepy on camera. Ow! She's hit me. Don't bite my back. She wants to play, I think. Yeah, you think. Oh, you have a pumpkin. Is that a pumpkin? For the sake of October, we're calling it a pumpkin. The next book I read was M Train by Patti Smith. This book I started in, I think like March? And I finished it in August. So I pretty much read 1 short story in all of June and July and then didn't finish anything else until August, which was the book that I had already started months ago. It's basically about Patti Smith traveling and like the places she visited, the books that she read, and then also there was this really like amazing like kind of, I don't even want to say undertone, like overtone of grief and like her grieving her husband who had passed away and kind of just like how she was running from those emotions and how she kind of like, it kept catching up to her no matter how much she tried to run away and like move every time like a holiday came up or something. And it's something I really relate to. Like holidays and birthdays suck when you've lost someone, and like even just normal days can suck, especially when you kind of feel like a little bit alone without them. So I loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. I want to say this might have actually been the best book I've read this year so far. I loved it. It was just incredible. I love Patti Smith's writing. Honestly, if I had more of her books, I would be like breezing through them. I read her books, I mean, not M Train, obviously, that took me so long, which is silly because I loved it. But I don't know, I just didn't finish it quickly. But with her other books, I read them a lot faster this year, so I don't know. And then after that, I finished, which is this book is very different from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, and that is Telling the Truth, the Gospel as Tragedy, Comedy, and Fairy Tale. It's basically like, you know, comparing the gospel to those three categories. And it did such an amazing job at like really, I don't know, like sometimes I'm not the biggest fan of like how certain Christians, especially on social media primarily, if you're not a Christian, a lot of what you see on social media especially, and even some authors, like it's not going to resonate with you because you don't understand fundamentally what they're talking about. But I like how Telling the Truth was very down to earth, very grounded, kind of like calling out how as a preacher, you need to not be afraid to be honest and tell the truth, but also trust that God is going to reach people if he's going to reach them. And it's like, you don't have to argue with people. You don't have to like win a fight for it to be considered like, you know, I'm preaching to this person. Sometimes you just have to let God guide your words and he'll do the rest for you. The thing that a lot of people hated about this book in reviews was they're like, why does he keep quoting King Lear so much? And like, this isn't like biblically based, but it's his testimony. And it's like also relating it back to stories that resonated with him. And then how he saw like a God connection in like the metaphor of a story. And I loved that because that's how my brain works too. My writing is very like, kind of metaphorical for aspects of God and certain things and like my experience with God too. And I think people underestimate how important that can be and how it's like, okay, you've had an experience in your own discernment and that can be very powerful too, even if he's not quoting a Bible verse every other like sentence. It's also like, it's not against the Bible whatsoever. This book absolutely is biblically sound and based and it references it quite a bit. It just doesn't feel the need to like, I guess, to do that for the sake of it. Like he's very intelligent with like tying tons of things into like one point, but then having it all be biblically based. And he does that in many different ways. I think if you're not a Christian, this is a really good book to read because it's very like accessible, like I said, and just like, I don't know, I loved it. So I gave that one also 5 stars. This was a really good streak for me with books, by the way. Oh, also the book was written by Frederick Buchner, and I'm pretty sure I've been butchering that name.
Oh, brother!
Oh, I started that book in January, so it was more like 7 months or 8 months. I don't know what happened. Anyway, The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. I love him. I love Kafka so much, and I love The Metamorphosis. The Metamorphosis is basically about this guy who gets turned into a giant bug just randomly. Don't explain why, but he gets turned into a giant bug. Family basically keeps him locked in a room, and they're like trying to figure out what to do with him. And the whole book is a metaphor for something. I just don't totally know what. Some people think that it's a metaphor for kind of ableism, where it's like if you're not able to provide something to society by working or like carrying your own weight, that you have no value. And people were saying that might be like a metaphor for, it's like if you have a disability and you can't like fully, you know, contribute. I don't know. That was kind of one idea someone had, and then someone else said it's just really whatever you think it is. And I think I like that a little better because there were certain things I got out of it. On the flip side of that, I did feel like I related to his family in some ways, just feeling like isolated to an extent, and like you don't have people around you who are actually being supportive and considerate of what you're going through. Like one thing, I don't think this is considered a spoiler, but the fact that they had like no friends by the end because no one even like wondered what happened to him. I don't think they just kind of disappeared when things got weird. So that I kind of relate to that. Like it's kind of almost a good way of describing grief in a sense, and how you can feel more alone. Go away. Oh, it's a carrot. Ow. You're a psycho. Stop it. Oh, no. Heathen. Anyway, that's what I got out of The Metamorphosis. I gave it 5 stars. The next book I read was The Coral Sea by Patti Smith, which I got on Thrift Books, and it was cool because someone annotated it. I found that very interesting. I didn't love all of her notes, but I found it interesting to like have someone else's perspective of it. It's like a collection of poems, essentially. Like it's kind of like telling a story in some parts and then poetry in others. Like it's not all poetry, which is kind of cool, but it was basically like a collection of writing that she had after her friend passed away, and kind of just describing how she saw him. I definitely recommend reading it. I also gave it 5 stars. This one really sparked my writing recently, and it helped me kind of break through some barriers I was having with my writing that I didn't even realize until reading this, so it's amazing. The next book I read, which I actually have, oh, I was supposed to be showing you these because I have physical copies of these. Oops, I forgot at this point. I'm actually in my older room, which you might recognize from old videos if you're you watched them, which I don't recommend anyway. Also in September was You Should Have Left by Daniel Kilman. And this was made into a movie, which you guys might recognize more than the book. I don't know why, just you might. Basically, it's about this family who, I think they're staying in like a motel or something, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And there's like kind of rumors about what things that happened in the past in the motel, and like the town is really weird about them staying there, but they ignore it because, you know, that happens in these situations. And then it turns out that basically like you can't escape the house, because basically the rooms are changing and it's like a whole thing. It's a horror story. Can you please stop? She ruined the light. It was okay. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars on Fable. Not my favorite. There was one part that freaked me out because like there's a part where he's looking at a baby monitor and the baby's sitting straight up, wide awake, eyes glowing, because I think it was in black and white, like a night vision. And then he goes into the room and she's fast asleep, despite it looking different on the baby monitor. And then there was another part where someone's like hovering over the crib and she's like screaming, and then he goes in and she's fast asleep. That freaked me out. Things like that freak me out so much, especially because I've been looking at my sister's baby monitor so much lately. I don't know why, that just like gets to me. That was the only part of that, and there's a part because he's writing in his journal throughout the whole thing. So there's a part where you see that he wrote, I think like 4 times on one page it says like get out, get out, get out, and then he says nothing about it. And then later on, he's like, because he's looking through it, and he's like, I don't remember writing that. Like those 2 parts I found like scary, more the baby monitor than anything else. I think the journal thing was just really an interesting detail, and it made it feel like immersive. Other than that, I didn't find this scary like at all, which is kind of why I didn't like it. It's very short though, it's like 90 pages. So I mean, if you wanna, hold on, what is my dog eating? It's a baby toy, I'm pretty sure. Adrian, is that yours? Give me that. It is not a baby toy, it's a baby pillow. Okay, anyway. The next book that I read was Wool Gathering by Patti Smith. It's about like childhood wonder and imagination, but also some of the experiences that she had growing up. And I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars just because it wasn't like my favorite of hers. It was also, it's very dreamy, and I think I maybe just wasn't totally in the mood for a book like this at the time, because I just kind of wanted something that was like really, I don't know, not to say that it's confusing. It's not like a confusing book. I wanted something that didn't make me think, and I feel like this did, like at the time. But it's a beautiful book. I'd like to reread it because I think it would probably be 5 stars if I like read it at a different point. But it's really cool. I love books that feel like a dream, and it's like, I know usually it's like, okay, if I use a little more brain power, I'd probably actually understand what's going on, but I can just sit in like the vibes of it and not worry as much. I love books like that. Those were all the books that I read from like July to September.
I see you at the movies. I see you with your lipstick on.
Hey, so it's a couple days later, and you may notice that the video quality is exponentially better. Kind of. I discovered the cinematic feature on iPhones, and it is a game changer. I think really just fogging the background is what's making this better, but you know what? I'm gonna pretend that it's like just infinitely better. The reason that I'm filming this part today as opposed to the other night, I did actually tell you guys my TBR, but I only mentioned like 3 books, 2 of which I'm not really enjoying, and 1 that I'm pretty sure I won't even be finishing until the end of this year. So it wasn't like, it was just like my October reads, but it was really bad. I'm just gonna be going through my entire fall reading list, but also my ambitious fall reading list, meaning that most of these books may or may not actually get read this year, but they are on my list. That's what we're doing, because I feel like there was like nothing on the list when I initially did it, and it was really anticlimactic. So we're doing that. So the first book on my list is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Now, I wanted to read this for a while because I actually have characters in the book that I'm writing that are inspired by these 2. Partially the Once Upon a Time versions, which I feel like makes me seem very unintelligent, because I really should have maybe looked into the original story a little more, but I kind of had my own spin on them, so I kind of just went with like the archetypes and just what I know of these characters in general. and kind of made my own versions of them, so it doesn't need to be completely accurate to this. But I wanted to read the actual book and really like see what it's about, because like I said, I know the story to an extent, but I never just read it. So this book is normally ranging from 90 pages to about 150, depending on what version that you're reading or like what edition. This is 70 pages, which scares me. I don't know if it's because the margins are like really, like the writing is so small on this, or if it's because they cut a bunch out. I have no idea. Currently I'm on page like 27, which probably would be closer to like 40 or 50 pages, I'm guessing, if it was like a normal size. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I really wanted to like it better. I felt like it was gonna have more horror vibes to it, but I feel like so far there really hasn't been much horror or like shock value to it. Like it's not like hitting as hard as I was hoping this book would, which once again, this makes me sound illiterate by saying that I didn't know this going in. But I think having this book told from a completely different character's perspective is what's getting me, because I didn't know that. I think it would have been really interesting if it was like Hyde and Jekyll's perspectives kind of back and forth. That would have been cool. I'm just like, this is so different from what I expected it would be that I'm just not loving it. But I mean, once again, only on page 30, it might get better. I will probably be finishing this one in October or maybe November at the latest, but my thing is that it's so short and I'm already like almost halfway through technically. I feel like I might as well just finish it eventually, but I feel like I've been reading so many books, or I've been trying to read a lot that are very like philosophical and deep and heavy. And so I think at the point that I read this, I'm just a little fried on what I've been trying to consume literature-wise. So that's kind of why I'm just having a really hard time. Like maybe like a month ago, I probably would have like breezed through this because it's so short, even if I didn't love it. But at this point, I'm just kind of fried, so I don't know if I'm actually like gonna finish it in October, but I'm gonna try. And the next book that I'm currently in the middle of is The Castle by Franz Kafka. I think I started this almost immediately after The Metamorphosis because I love his writing style so much that I really wanted to read more of his books. I'm on page 147. It's about 400 pages long, this particular copy, and I think that's because it has a bunch of cut scenes from the book as well as a potential ending. And the reason for that is because he didn't technically write an ending before he died, which I didn't know going into it. I think somebody wrote an ending or sort of pieced together a potential ending based on his notes. The book is basically about this guy who he goes to this random town as a land surveyor, and then he finds out there's been a big mix-up and that they didn't actually hire him. And so he could just go home, but he doesn't. He just sticks around harassing everyone, and he gets engaged in the first like couple days that he's there, which isn't really a spoiler, it doesn't matter. But he's just chilling there, and there's a castle at the edge of town that he wants to get to so badly, but like you can't actually get to it. Like not only is it kind of nearly impossible to even just get to it by like walking or like riding like a carriage or whatever, like he's tried and it's like a maze, I think. But they also just really don't want people going there if they're not part of like, so I think there's like a special type of people who can go and who work in the castle. I want to like this book, and I think the only reason I've really been still sticking with the book is because I really like his writing. I feel like I haven't read tons of classics, or probably not very like normal classics, but Kafka's writing doesn't feel like a classic to me. It feels like he's just chilling and vibing, and like I don't know, I like the way he writes. It's always kind of funny. I feel like it's pretty understandable. I actually looked it up, and apparently it's supposed to be confusing and frustrating, which is the kind of the main reason I stuck with it at that point, because I realized I'm like, okay, I'm not an idiot. The feeling I'm having while reading this is kind of what you're supposed to feel. I was gonna try to read it in like a month, and then I put it on the back burner when I realized it doesn't have an official ending. So it's just been a really complicated mess with this book, but I still keep coming back to it because I just find his writing endearing, and I kind of don't hate this book, even though in a lot of ways I do. It's very interesting, my relationship with it. I just need to see it through to the end. Yeah. So the next book on my list is Seeking Peace, and this is a book that my mom recommended to me. She actually told me today that she's been trying to read this for like 20 years, and it just is like, it's not the easiest to get through. I mean, I was a little more confused when I started it a few months ago, and then I restarted it last night, and I kind of understand it. It's a Christian book, being these really short chapters just talking about the different versions of peace and like, you know, world peace and like peace among men, kind of I guess trying to achieve it in our lives. I feel like the concept is good. I'm not the biggest fan of the book so far, but I'm hoping that I'll start to enjoy it more. I didn't love the beginning because I feel like the author was kind of getting into something politically that I disagreed with, and also kind of just didn't see like very relevant. It's not like the issue that I was talking about with telling the truth, or like with books that are similar to it, so much as, I mean, so far. It was just, I don't know. I didn't love the argument he was making, especially at the beginning, because it kind of immediately turned me off to him as like a writer with like his opinions. But hopefully he'll actually get into some like more biblical Christian points as opposed to political ones, so we can kind of get to the point, because I do want to read this, and I haven't really read a lot of Christian books. And it's kind of philosophical in a way, which has definitely been my kind of main genre of books this year. So I'm looking forward to it. I just hope it, gets a little better. The next book on my list, which I will be honest, I kind of just realized I know nothing about this book, is The Alchemist. And I've wanted to read this for a while, just from like vibes alone. So I added it to my TBR probably I'm assuming I added it maybe like 5 years ago when I wasn't even reading a lot. A friend of ours, she read it recently and just absolutely hated it. And because she hated it, but knows that so many people adore it, she's trying to get me to read it because she needs to know what my opinion is. And she's made me so curious that I've actually kind of bumped it up a little higher on my list. So I was thinking in either October or November reading it, because I just now I really want to know, and I want to be able to talk to her about it. So I'm actually tempted to start this sooner than later, despite having like she said that someone on Love Island apparently went to Egypt because of it. So now I know it has to do with Egypt, and that's it. That's all I know. And then it's kind of like a hero's journey, I think, but I don't know much else. So technically the next book on my list is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, and I absolutely adore this book. I read it, I think, 2 years ago. I absolutely love it. The only problem is that for the 100th time, my computer crashed yet again, and I literally can't get it to start. So, and that's where I have a copy of it. It was a document that my teacher gave me. So I don't know if I want to buy another copy, because like, here's the thing too. The version that I read was abridged, and the only big difference that I can see with that is that there was less info dumping about Victor Frankenstein's family and his experience, and it literally, I don't think it cut those things out necessarily, but what it did do is it had the tree getting struck by lightning in chapter 1. That was the hook. And the thing that I was learning in that class was how to write a good hook. So it was really funny because the teacher had us read both versions and say which one we liked better, and I told her that I liked the abridged version because it had a better hook. And then she's like, but I love the original. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, for the assignment, it makes more sense to have the abridged one because it just gets you into the story. But I personally liked it a lot better. I felt like the info dumping in chapter 1 really slowed down the story. I never really read much beyond that in the original because I think I only had the first 2 chapters available to me for school. I also have never been able to find that abridged version anywhere else. I need to look up what version it is. I would really like to get my computer working to read that specific edition as opposed to buying a new one that I maybe don't like as much. But I'm also thinking I should maybe give the original a try, because it's kind of silly to say that I automatically don't like what she intended the story to be as opposed to a man editing it. Like, that doesn't sit right with me. I don't know. I think I should really give the original a try at some point. It's just also longer too. I've been reading a lot of shorter books this year because my sister was born in February, and I honestly just haven't had a lot of time. So I like that copy of it is like 80 to 90 to 100 pages as opposed to 200. But once again, I kind of feel like that's not in the spirit of Mary Shelley, so I should probably find another version eventually. But for now, I don't know, I'll figure it out. I may just not be reading it this year anyway because I have a lot to go through. A decent amount of these other ones were not going to be completely on my list, or I'm like not really sure in what order or when or if even this year, but because we're being ambitious, I'm going to include them anyway. So I added Just Kids by Patti Smith literally yesterday. I always thought this was about her and Fred Smith, but it's actually about her and like just a friend that she had. This is like, I'm pretty sure very similar to M Train, where it's just kind of about her life experiences with another person. It's just another memoir of Patti Smith. This is probably the most popular book that she's written. I've seen it so much. I feel like I'm having a hard time reading like anything but her writing for some reason this year, so I thought I'd bring it over here from my house just to maybe try it out, because I don't know, it's a lot longer than like The Coral Sea and Wool Gathering, but I don't know, I feel like I'll probably breeze through it if I read it, so maybe for November. The next book on my list is Looking for Alaska by John Green. Now, I watched like, I want to say 99% of the miniseries for this, so I know to an extent how it ends. I don't know what the Great Perhaps ended up being. I, for some reason, stopped like right before they revealed that, which was really a weird choice on my part. Whoa, all my Polaroids are in here. I got jump scared. Anyway, the reason that I'm considering reading it, I've wanted to read it for a while, and I know there's some inappropriate content in it, which I will be skimming or skipping or whatever. I don't even know what's in here, to be honest, because the miniseries was not that bad, so I'm not sure if this is another case of people over-exaggerating or not. But anyway, so I read The Fault in Our Stars after my grandfather, well, when my grandfather was living with us, and around the time he passed away, I ended up reading the Fault in Our Stars for the very first time. And I have always associated it with him since. And so I was kind of thinking of reading this because my aunt passed away this year. And I feel like in some ways Alaska kind of reminds me of her. I feel like I'm weirdly correlating this book with her now, and I don't really know why, because it's not like it has anything to do with her other than me kind of vibing her and Alaska as similar. But we'll see. I'm thinking of maybe making this a higher priority this year because of that reason. But yeah. And then the next book I wanted to read, which I do think I might read in like December, but we're gonna try for November, I guess, is Before the Coffee Gets Cold. And it's basically, it's kind of like like an anthology, kind of like, yeah, it's broken up into these 4 parts. The concept of this book is that you have the ability to talk to someone that you never thought you would talk to again, like someone who's passed away, or I think there's like other cases too, probably, where it's like maybe like an ex or something, but you basically can sit down and talk to someone who you never thought you'd see or hear from again, and you have literally until the coffee gets cold at your table to say everything you need to say. And I just think this is a really interesting concept, especially as someone who's gone through so much grief. I think just like, it kind of is like, someone called this book a bit of a fan service book to an extent, and I kind of get that. Like, it immediately gets me thinking about what I would say in that short span of time, and like how I would feel doing that and all these things, and like, you know, if it provides more closure or, you know, makes things harder, like, you know, I don't know. I think it's kind of like a philosophical book in its own right, but like also just very like, you know, self-serving for a person who may want to visualize themselves in this situation. So I'm probably will read it this year. I'm just not 100% set on November or December. My thing too is that if I'm reading both of these in November's my grandfather's heaven anniversary, so I'm kind of thinking maybe not reading 2 super depressing books that month would be like wiser than what I'm trying to do currently. So the last book for fall on my list is Tamlin by Pamela Dean, which I actually mentioned in the last video on here. I described it as dark academia, which is just completely inaccurate. I just watched someone talk about, what's it called, Catabasis, is that how you say it? And she was talking about like comparing it to like the Secret History and Babel, and how we kind of like have generalized the term dark academia to an aesthetic as opposed to it actually being about academia. And I feel like I should not be calling Tamlin a dark academia book. Like, once again, I don't know if like liberal arts completely translates to dark academia. Like, there obviously has to be more to it other than just like, you know, takes place at a random school. I'm still planning on reading it in November because I've been saying I was gonna read it for like 3 years, and it's one of the only 2 Tamlin books that I own that I haven't read are ACOTAR and Tamlin. And I think I've hyped it up so much that I'm like terrified now, but I think it's a really good November book because it's not like depressing, it's just very long. But I'm gonna try to make the time for it and hopefully not completely destroy my reading goal by reading something super long towards the end of the year, because that seems like a really good way to do it. Also, I cut my reading goal down to 20 because 30 was not working for me. But anyway, I feel like I've ranted enough. So that was my November TBR. And I mean my fall TBR, whatever. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you're reading this fall, and if you have way too many books that you want to read that you probably are not going to read all of like I am. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. Bye.